Yes, the Thousand Sun, or not the Thousand Suns, wrong faction. Ooh, that'll get me in trouble with the Space Wolves players.
The faction that fought the Thousand Suns. How about that?
Okay, fair enough. Okay,
We found our cold open at least.
there we go. Welcome to Preferred Enemies, the Warhammer 40k podcast that knows that there's no time like the wolf time. I'm your host, Rob.
Kevin? Dennis?
No Richard with us tonight, but we do have Dennis back.
Hi.
And that is because this is our look at the new upcoming Codex Space Wolves, copy provided to us by Games Workshop in exchange for a fair and honest review. So thank you, Games Workshop, for getting us an advanced look at this. So we will be digging into that. There's really been no news and new releases because if you'll notice by our schedule, our last episode in which we talked about Thousand Suns was last week. It is coming fast and furious right now. The release schedule is insane. In addition, we also have something else to talk about, and that is the chapter-approved mission deck, the one with the asymmetric missions that we were talking about during the Adepticon reveals. And let's see, I think there's also a Crusade book, but I don't think we can...
Don't think we can fit that review in here as well?
Yeah.
No, we could hit the highlights of the mission deck, because I do remember some of the things that caught my eye. One being that my group here plays 1,000-point games a lot. And in there, it's back to the 1,000-point games are 2 of any unit and 4 of battle line.
Yes. So this week, going up for pre-order is the chapter-approved mission decks, Space Wolves box, and Crusade Armageddon. It's a very busy release week. We're only going to talk about 2 of these. Crusade deserves its own episode, but we'll probably be getting to that after Midwest Conquest, because that's also going on as you're listening to this. So, well, or at least if you're listening to this when this episode comes out. Yeah,
or on the drive to there. Just listen while you're driving.
Well, no, you shouldn't be listening to this on the drive there, because this would come out. Yeah, this would be coming out the day of like Saturday. If I really
listen to it on the drive back,
you could. You absolutely could.
Yeah.
Yes, it will be waiting for you on the drive back. So we will save Crusade Armageddon for another time. But I do want to talk briefly about the chapter-approved deck. It's similar to the Pariah Nexus deck, but there are a few significant changes. For one thing, the whole mission rules, where you have your primary objective and you have your deployment deck, and then there's a secondary rule that sits on top of that. That has been changed. Now we have, for generating a mission, you have the primary mission deck, the deployment deck, you have your secondary missions for Attacker and Defender, which are the same. And then there's a twist deck. And it's unclear, like it basically says, if you're using them one twist. It doesn't say that you have to, and we do not have the tournament companion packet that Games Workshop has put out for the last couple of years to list, like, is the twist considered a standard part of a competitive mission?
I read it. It just seemed like it was an optional thing you could do if you wanted to liven up your game, which means in competitive, it probably will not be there.
Right.
What a twist.
What a twist, yes. And yes, Dennis, as you pointed out, in 1,000-point games, and kudos to Games Workshop for throwing more official support behind 1,000-point games. They do have specific incursion / 1,000-point level deployment maps, as they revealed during Adepticon, and it's good to see that officially being supported.
And what I found interesting is the fact that there's the 1,000-point deck and the 2,000-point deck, so you could, whichever one you're playing, you pull from, but they're similar board layouts for deployment zones, but the markers are slightly different places. Mm-hmm. So I guess they kind of maybe put them like closer for the 1,000 points so you could actually maybe get to them easier. So I found that interesting.
Yeah. The other thing that they announced for that was asymmetric war missions, where there are different deployment zones, not just mirrored, but very different deployment zones for attacker defender, and theoretically, and I'll explain why I say theoretically, different objectives for the attacker and defender. We'll see how much that really pans out. But in asymmetric war missions, it plays very old school.
Yes.
Because you don't alternate back and forth. In an asymmetric war mission, the attacker sets up their entire army first. This is what it says. In an asymmetric war mission, starting with the attacker, each player sets up all of their units wholly within their deployment zone. Once a player is finished setting up units, if that player has any units that have not yet been set up because there isn't room, they start in the reserves. If a unit cannot be set up in this step or start the battle in reserves, it is destroyed. I'm not sure why they made that addendum other than some of the deployment zones are smaller or more weirdly shaped.
Yeah. I mean, how I read that one, like you said, was attacker sets up everything, then defender sets up everything. And to your point, yeah, some of the deployment zones are on the smaller side because of, and it depends on what table size you're using, but that could be where they're saying, just to clarify it for a lot of the rules lawyers that get there saying, well, what if I can't set up my, well, then put it in reserve. Well, what if that's in my mind the rationale behind all those extra phrases added.
The other thing I immediately noticed, because I was looking very much at the asymmetric missions, and I was like, okay, so the attacker generates an asymmetric mission and the defender generates an asymmetric mission. No, that is not true. There is one asymmetric mission card, one asymmetric primary mission. And I kept looking through the pamphlet like, okay, where does it say I generate the other one? You don't. You just generate the one. Also, attacker always goes first. There is no roll-off for determining who goes first.
Which is kind of neat, especially since the attacker thus has to deploy first. So the defender can see where all the attackers are, deploy their stuff strategically, knowing the attacker is going to be on them on first turn. I think the only people who the asymmetric are kind of geared towards is narrative or story players who just want some random stuff to play. I don't think you'll see asymmetric hit the competitive scene.
No, you absolutely won't. So also, one of the things that was revealed in the Adepticon reveal was challenger cards. Challenger cards, basically it's a catch-up mechanism if you are 6 victory points behind or more. Now, when they announced the 6, that seemed like an odd total, especially because a lot of the challenger cards give you, I think, 3 victory points if you can complete their mission. And so that had me thinking, are we changing to a different point structure? Because we saw in the Nachman Gauntlet Crusade book that, missions were now being scored at 10 points rather than 100. No, it's still just like it was in Pariah Nexus. Primary, secondary adds up to 90. Battle Ready is an extra 10, so you're going for 100. Challenger cards can get you as much as 12 victory points, but you can never get more than 90 total between primary, secondary, and challenger. So they are a catch-up mechanism, and if you're using them, you're probably not going to go over 90 anyway, but they do clarify that you cannot go over 90 total.
Yeah, I know when I read through the challenger stuff, I'm like, this is actually a cool mechanic, and they've been trying to come up with a catch-up mechanic in each of the previous ones, and the first one failed horribly. The second one is kind of used rarely. I think this might be the best of the 3, because these seem a lot more attainable, and you don't have to be dead in the water behind. You just have to be behind.
Yes, yeah.
And I believe it was on any turn?
If at the start of the battle round, you have fewer victory points than your opponent, and you are behind by 6 or more. So basically, if you're not within 5, then you don't get a challenger card, but it happens at the start of the battle round. So you can only ever get 4.
So also in theory, you can have both people have challenger stuff if one's behind. And you couldn't do that with the previous 2 systems. This one, it's they want to try and keep the game close, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it could swing back and forth. Both players could, they won't end up with a challenger card on the same turn, but
correct.
One person could have a challenger card one turn, one round, and then the other player, one player somehow pulls ahead by enough, and then the other player, so now okay, now I get to do a challenger card. So that is cool. I do like that, and catch-up mechanisms are always fun. It does keep things from being a blowout, and most of the challenge missions are pretty easy to accomplish too. So when we get into the asymmetric deployments, the deployments for the regular like incursion and strike force, the strike force ones are pretty much the same as we've had in the Pariah Nexus deck. The incursion ones are mostly the same, but as you mentioned, different objective placement to make them a little easier to attain for smaller armies. When it gets to the asymmetric deployments, those get very interesting. There's one called Last Stand that is a 14-inch radius bubble in the center for the defender, and then the attacker has 3 of the table corners, but one of them's kind of a weird trapezoid. It's odd. There's Breakout, where the defender has a big band of the middle and the attacker has the other sides. Tip of the Spear, where the defender has half the table and the attacker has a wedge coming towards it. Defensive Line, where that one is a very strange shape. It has this weird stretched out hexagon on the diagonal for the defender, and then the attacker has most of a table quarter, but not all of it. And it includes a defensive line saying the deployment works best when terrain is set up in and around the front of the defender's deployment zone, the diagonal across the center of the battlefield to make a well-fortified position. So to your point, Dennis, these are definitely more for narrative play.
Yes.
And then Pincer Attack, where the defender has a wedge and the attacker is coming in from the 2 table quarters opposite the wedge. The measurements are a little bit crazy. These definitely would not work for a tournament just because they would take forever to set up. Most of your primary missions are the same. There's a couple of changes. One new one. So we've got Take and Hold, which is really unchanged. Burden of Trust, where you have somebody guarding an objective. That one has pretty much the same. Yeah, Linchpin, where you want to control the objective marker in your deployment zone and other objective markers as well. That one's pretty much unchanged. Scorched Earth, where you burn objectives. That one has pretty much the same. Purge the Foe, where you want to kill, whoever kills more enemy units than friendly units in the battle round. That one really hasn't changed. Terraform did change, and I kind of like how this one changed. In the last version of Pariah Nexus, Terraform basically said, okay, well, once somebody terraforms an objective, they've got it locked in, and it can never trade hands, like as far as getting points for it. In the new one, you can terraform each other's objectives. So you're never locked out from scoring the extra point. And also they changed how it's scored. It used to be like 4 points for every objective marker you control and 2 points for every objective marker you have terraformed. It is now 4 points for each objective marker you have control and 1 victory point for each objective marker that you have terraformed. So the terraforming is worth fewer points, but you aren't locked out, so you get more back and forth. That's always good. Hidden Supplies is a new one, and that's because they took the mission rule of Hidden Supplies, which added a 6th objective, and they now made it a primary mission where you add the extra objective, and then it's basically hold 1, hold 2, hold more. So it's like take and hold plus extra objective added. And that does mean that got pulled away from mission rules. But like I said, mission rules don't exactly exist anymore. The Ritual is pretty much the unchanged. Unexploded Ordnance is still my least favorite because it involves moving objective markers around. It's better than Servo Skulls, but I still don't like it. Supply Drop still has the Alpha Omega objectives where they disappear. And then we get into the asymmetric missions. And some of these are different for the attacker defender. Some of them are not. They're not quite as asymmetric as they seem. There's one called Denied Resources, where if the defender can choose to deny an objective and remove it from the battlefield, and you get points every time you deny an objective. The attacker gets points for controlling objectives, and they get more points depending on what deployment zone it's in, and same for the defender. If they deny an objective in your opponent's deployment zone, it's worth a lot more points. Holdout is not asymmetric at all. The player whose turn it is scores 5 victory points for each objective marker they control. I was like, okay, so where's the asymmetric part? There isn't any. That one is just everybody's playing the same mission. It's taken hold.
No, the asymmetricals in the map.
Yeah, but that's one of the things. It's like, I want something where both sides are doing different missions, and this isn't that. The siphoned power, it took me a bit to reread this one, because it starts out at the start of the battle, the defender scores 50 victory points.
Woohoo!
However, the attacker has an action that only they can perform, where if you have units on objective markers, and any number of units in your army, as long as they're on different objective markers, can do this. They perform an action. If at the end of your turn you still control that same objective marker, it is siphoned, and you take victory points away from the defender and add them to the attacker's total based on where the objectives that you siphoned are. So defender starts out with a full primary, attacker starts out with empty. My only problem is there's no way for the defender to retake primary points. The best they can do is try to catch up on secondaries or prevent the attacker from taking their objectives. It is asymmetric. I do like it. I wish there was more catch up for the defender. Established control, also not asymmetric. It's basically you score 3 victory points for each objective marker you control. It's linchpin. If you don't control each objective marker in your deployment zone, you score 3 victory points for each one you do control. If you do control it, you get 3 for the ones in your deployment zone and 5 for other objective markers. So it's a variation of linchpin. And then there's uneven ground, which you score victory points based on where the objectives are. Are they in your zone? Are they in no man's land? Are they in your opponent's zone? Again, both players playing the same mission. It's just, as you said, Dennis, an asymmetric map, but not an asymmetric mission. And that kind of bugs me, that the missions are only a couple of them are actually asymmetrical. I feel like I didn't quite get what I was promised with this. Secondaries are mostly the same. There's a couple of small tweaks. There's like one new secondary called Display of Might, where if you have more units from your army than your opponent does in no man's land, but you can't score it first turn. But that's a new one. I think there was one other secondary that went away, but it's mostly the same. There's a few tweaks on scoring if they're tactical versus fixed. But it's pretty clean and works in a lot of the errata that they did in Pariah Nexus. The Challenger cards are pretty cool. All of them involve giving you a free strat, which could be anything from being able to move through terrain, or if you have an objective from if you have a unit from your army that's not in your deployment zone and is within 9 inches of a battlefield edge, you immediately get 3 victory points. Pretty much all of these are either end of your turn or immediately. You've got one that's lets you do mortal wounds to an enemy unit within 6 inches, or you destroyed one or more enemy models from 2 or more different units. You don't even have to wipe out the unit, you just have to kill models from a couple of units. Very easy to accomplish. Yeah, all the Challenger ones are pretty simple to accomplish, and it does make sure that you probably won't be shut out unless things are going very, 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 very badly for you.
I could still get shut out.
Yeah. But there's 9 challenge cards. So even if both players were pulling from the same deck, you wouldn't see, you can't see all of them. You can't have 2 players having them at the same time. And you won't see all of them in a game. But they're there. They're pretty easy. I like the mechanic. I do agree with Dennis that this is probably the best version of it. Secret missions were okay. I didn't mind secret missions. I actually scored on secret missions once or twice. I think I may have even won a game with a secret mission once. Gambits were terrible. Nobody liked those. This, I think the only thing I could see being an issue here is I don't know. We'll have to see if it's enough of a catch up. I don't know if anybody will win with challengers, because theoretically, if you pull ahead, you're only going to have a couple of them in the game. So we'll see what happens with those. And then there's the twists. I don't like the twists. I really don't like the twists. And I don't like the twists because they are woefully unbalanced. These are not like the mission rules. There's a couple of them that are similar to the mission rules, But like the mission rules changed up the game in such a way that it really didn't matter what you were playing. Everybody could kind of adjust to it. The twists, for example, let's just start from the top. Night fighting. Each unit can only be the target of a ranged attack if the attacking model is within 18 inches. Everyone gets 18-inch lone up. I hate playing Tau. Kevin really likes playing World Eaters and is fine with this.
Yes.
And they even have a note. This is a great twist for players who do not yet have a battlefield's worth of terrain. On the one hand, kudos to Games Workshop for putting in things to help support people who are still working on their terrain collections. Very proud of you. On the other hand, this belongs nowhere in a competitive mission pack. Ruinscape. Each time a unit makes a normal or advanced move, it can move through terrain. Do you have a strat that gives this to you? Save your points. Everybody gets it.
Again, I do not see the problem with this.
Martial Pride. Advancing does not make a battle line unit ineligible to start an action, excluding vehicle units. Suck it, Chaos Knights. And starting an action does not make a battle line unit ineligible to shoot, this is Stalwarts. This is the mission rule Stalwarts, with a carve out for vehicles because Chaos Knights can suck it. Take your War Dogs and go somewhere else. We love you, Chaos Knights players. Please don't take that personally. Maybe a little bit personally, I don't know. Rapid escalation. Players can set up strategic reserves on the first battle round. If they do, they cannot be set up with deep strike, and they have to come in from within 6 inches of a battlefield edge, and you can only set up to 400 points this way in Strike Force and Asymmetric War missions. 200 points in Incursion. So like only a fifth of your army can be set up this way. But that is the same as Rapid Escalation of the Twist. That one's fine. Adapt or Die. This is the same one for fixed and tactical missions. You can discard, once per battle, you can change out a mission. That's a fine twist. That's in the mission rule deck. So in some cases, these are fine. High Octane. Every time a unit advances, don't roll. It just automatically advances 6 inches.
Again, I do not see the problem with any of this.
You're going to have even less of a problem with this one. Bloodlust, you can make 18-inch charges, and you roll 3d6 instead of 2d6 each time you charge.
Hell yeah. Can I just make these twists my army rules? Like, this is fantastic.
I was going to say, yeah.
Only if you increase the points of your models by 100 each for each.
Yeah.
Nope.
Point blank, ranged weapons excluding blast weapons have pistol. I mean, at least ranged players are getting something. Hey. Of course, like with Tau, like everything is like all the stuff that has good guns on it are vehicles anyway, so it doesn't matter. Lords of War, until the end of the battle, add 3 to the attack's characteristic of each weapon equipped by Warlord models, excluding vehicles, and that is the last one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these are great for assault armies. Exactly none of them are good for ranged armies. I don't really count the pistol one.
I was going to say, like, I don't see what the problem here is. Things all seem fine to me.
Some of these are fine. The ones that were mission rules, like Adapt or Die, Rapid Escalation, Martial Pride, like those I don't really have a problem with, but the rest of them are wildly unbalanced, especially for certain armies. Like the one we're going to be talking about. Space Wolves will also be very happy with any of those. But yeah, I don't like the twists that just change up rules. I mean, all the twists change up rules, but I don't like the twists that unfairly punish one kind of army.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
Like I don't know like what I don't know what a ranged equivalent would be. Like I don't necessarily want. It's like, okay, you can have these cool ones for melee armies, but there better be a good one for a ranged army. No, I just don't want the ones that buff
all
certain
weapons
builds
have
over their others.
All weapons have precise. All ranged attacks have precise. Or all shooting attacks gain like +3, infantry, anti-infantry 3 up.
Yeah, see, that would also be bad, and I would not want that either.
Yeah, that's fair.
So yeah, there are some things in the chapter approved deck I really do like, and there's a couple of things, especially with the asymmetric missions, that leave me kind of disappointed, and the twists, half of them are just bad, and I'm curious to see what they do with the final tournament packet, and if there's any errata provided, if there's any clarification, like, okay, so we're only going to use like these 4 twists, or they may not use twists at all. They may
I don't think they're going to use them at all.
You think it'll just be the primary missions and deployments? That may be fine. Honestly, that would be good enough. There's a couple of them I could see them using, but not necessarily. Yeah, they don't have to. It wouldn't necessarily change enough to make. I mean, the missions will be fine as is. But that is not our main topic. Our main topic is getting into Codex Supplement Space Wolves, because that's right, it's not a Codex, it's a Codex Supplement, because it is still a Space Marine book.
Yeah, I'll get my quote in here first. I kind of miss the times when Space Wolves, Dark Angels, Blood Angels had their own books, because then they had a different feel to them. Just like if we look at Chaos, Thousand Suns, World Eaters, Emperor's Children, Death Guard, they feel different. This, as we'll get into, feels like, we're Space Marines with a little wolfy stuff tacked on. Makes me sad.
Yeah.
I want to be separate again.
Yeah. And Space Wolves, of all the divergent chapters, they are probably, apart from maybe Black Templars, they are the most divergent, especially of the founding chapters. They are definitely the most divergent of divergent chapters. If you are not aware of who the Space Wolves are, they are the werewolf Viking Space Marines, going back to the days of the Great Crusade, with their Primarch Leman Russ, who, yes, that's who the tank is supposed to be named after. He could not fit inside one if he tried.
I still have my dream of when they make him as the Primarch, have him use 2 Leman Russ tanks as roller skates. That would be awesome.
The Space Wolves were the 6th Legion under the Great Crusade. They are one of the founding legions of the Imperium Space Marines. And their Primarch was found on the planet of Fenris, which is one of the worst places to live in the galaxy. It is a planet that has a wildly elliptical orbit so that it either freezes or catches fire, depending on what part of the year it is. And it is populated with horrible monsters. Living here is extremely difficult, and only the hardiest of hardy people can make it. And somehow Leman Russ fell in, literally out of the sky, with the tribes who have somehow survived on this world that is frozen and a fiery hellscape, depending on what season it is. And the culture they have is very Norse. It is extremely Norse. And I don't mean like modern, like Sweden, I mean like old school Viking Norse, with runes and trophies and axes everywhere and wolves. Even though there are not supposed to be wolves on Fenris, yet there are wolves on Fenris. And in fact, the Space Wolves are among the wolves on Fenris because they're also prone to mutating. They have the Canis Helix, I think?
Yes.
Yeah.
That has caused them to more pronounced fangs. They tend to be a little bit hairier, and in certain cases they can full on wolf out. Not like transform in the middle of battle, but just eventually go like almost fully feral, and those are actually called the Wulfen. In the past, they were also kind of known as the Emperor's Executioners. They were sent generally to go after other legions who had fallen astray. When Magnus did something wrong, see last episode for reference, we did agree that he did do something wrong, even if it was for a good reason.
No, I still don't think so.
The Emperor ordered the Space Wolves to deal with the problem and to bring them into compliance. Unfortunately, he sent the message through Horus, who he did not yet know was a traitor, and Horus used this as an opportunity to take care of a couple of problems, because Magnus had been trying to convince him to not be evil, and this would also take the Space Wolves off the board for a while. So he passed along the message saying, the Emperor told you to kill all the Thousand Sons. They almost succeeded, but not quite, and this has led to pretty much an undying enmity between the two factions that persists to this day in the 40K universe.
Yeah, it's a big whoops.
I don't see it as a whoops. The Space Wolves won.
Yeah, and the Space Wolves are also not broken into chapters. They are not Codex compliant, but they were broken into great companies. And the 13th Great Company disappeared at one point and then was rediscovered. I think they disappeared into the Eye of Terror. And when they were rediscovered, they had changed. The Canis Helix had
Really activated.
truly activated, and they had devolved into full-on Wulfen. And so this is something that the Space Wolves have tried to keep carefully under wraps because they know the Inquisition would not allow the mutant to live.
These guys are no fun.
Yeah, no, they're not. I mean, well, they're also lots of fun because I think they're the only Space Marine chapter that gets super drunk on occasion.
Yes, the Space Wolves are awesome.
Yeah, they drink stuff that would kill mortal men because it's the only thing that can get through their enhanced biology, but they do party. They party pretty hard. Leman Russ himself, their Primarch, did not die during the Horus Heresy, but he did go off into the Eye of Terror to hunt down the heretics, and
he promised he'll come back.
Yeah, Dad went for milk and was never seen again.
No, he told them he was going out, and he said, "I will be back for the final battle against Chaos," just like all the Phoenix Lords.
All I'm gonna say is the Chaos Dads didn't leave; like they stuck around. For various versions of like how you would define that, but they didn't leave per se.
You kind of wish they would have in a couple of instances.
I didn't say this wasn't a good thing.
We're just saying on the scale of present fathers.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say present. They didn't leave. We'll put it that way.
Angron is still a very bad dad.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're all terrible. Again, as I was talking last episode, yeah, maybe the point of 40K is that everyone's bad.
Right. So, aesthetically, as I've said, Viking werewolves, and yes, everything in this army is wolf, rune, ice, and storm. Like that's like,
and frost.
And frost. I'll lump frost. Frost gets lumped in with ice, but like that is the overall aesthetic. Also, when I say wolf pelts and wolf masks,
Skulls.
Wolf skull helmets. Yeah, it's like
Teeth.
It's.
I mean, the orcs would love how many teeth these guys have on their armor.
They're so super rich, so rich, so many teeths. And you gotta love the glow up that they gave the new Terminators, because you've got Logan Grimnar, who went from Santa Claus in his sleigh to Scandinavian death metal cover.
Okay, I'll get into this now. The new models they put for everything look amazing. My complaint is I've got the old Logan Grimnar, and he still looks nice. I've got the old Njal, he looks nice. And so it's just like, man, I don't want to have to upgrade these, but the new models, they do look really good.
They did a phenomenal job. The fact that they gave Arjak an alternate pose where he's throwing the hammer.
Yeah,
here's cool. my thing about Arjak that I like about this new one better. He's not fine cast.
Yeah, it's all plastic, baby.
Because I still remember the night we were talking about things in my basement back in the day. And it was just on a whim. I was like, yeah, there's a bundle. I can get Arjak and I can get some like Lightning Claw Terminators. And this was around December, and I ordered it. And while we were recording, I was like, yeah, I'm going heavy Terminators on my Space Wolves now. I still remember that. It was fun.
Also, I'm like looking at the Terminator models, like from the preview article they posted when they announced like the new Terminators, and noticing there's the classic like old man Viking heads, and then there's like a guy who has very clearly like Asian features, and one who has very traditional African features. And they're painted with the appropriate skin tones. It's like, that's a pretty cool amount of diversity to see in the modeling and painting department on these. So,
for sure.
Yeah. And they don't look like stereotype. Well, I say that. The Asian guy has a Fu Manchu mustache. That's a little stereotypical.
Okay, to be fair, most
everybody
of the Space
has
Wolves have mustaches and beards, because they're hairy. They're Space Wolves.
Yeah. It's just... he has like a mid-length beard and this long Fu Manchu mustache. It's like so close to getting this one right.
So what I'm hearing is that Rob and Dennis both think that some stereotypes are okay.
No, what I'm saying is, man, if I could grow a Fu Manchu, that would look pretty cool.
I'm gonna beg to differ on that one, Dennis.
Okay, fine. It'd be cool.
Anyway, sorry. Attempts at slander aside.
But yeah, all the new models, like we talked about them with the Adepticon preview, now we've talked about them with the Terminators. Yeah, all of these new Space Wolves look fantastic. And unlike with many other chapters, you don't really have successor chapters to deal with, because anytime they've tried to make successor Space Wolves, the Canis Helix has gone a little bit nutty, and they're like, nope, too mutated, we should stop.
They do say in here they have successor chapters under the designer's notes. I mean, it's probably more rare than other ones, but...
Yeah, because they don't want to cut you off from being able to, like, create your own stuff, you know, and play Space Wolves, but a different paint scheme. But yeah, like, and I think they basically introduced successor chapters when they introduced the Primaris. They said, oh yeah, they have Primaris successor chapters now. And it's like, oh yeah, fine, whatever.
We fixed the glitch.
Yeah, sort of. Not well enough to like stop the glitch, but just to stop it from like running rampant.
So, as we've done with other books recently, we will talk about the army rules, then the data sheets, and then the detachments, of which there are only 3 because this is a Space Marine supplement. So we don't have nearly as much to talk about in that regard. And the army rules, first off, Space Marines, this is an Oath of Moment army. You will not get the advanced, better Oath of Moment. You will just get the basic reroll hits Oath of Moment. You don't get the +1 to wound because you are a chapter with the Space Wolves keyword. They still did not do the proper fix, which is just to give everybody the Space Wolves keyword, but most of the stuff you're going to take outside of vehicles is going to be Space Wolves anyway, so...
No.
Really?
No, I don't think so.
You think this is going to be a pretty bog standard army then?
A mix. I think it's going to be a mix. That's how I think it'll end up playing out.
And then the only other rule that we have that is specific to them is Curse of the Wulfen, which does say that while this unit is within a unit with the Curse of the Wulfen ability, if it's within 6 inches of one or more friendly non-Wulfen Space Wolf characters, or within 12 inches of one or more friendly Wolf Priests, if they're not battle shocked, they add 1 to their OC of infantry and 3 to the OC of vehicles.
Which... the reason for that is because all of the people that have this trait have an OC of 0.
Right. They're kind of like Death Company in that they are uncontrollable unless there's a chaplain nearby. And so as far as data sheets, this is probably the biggest list of cold units we've seen in a codex.
Do you want me to go over this part?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, they lost all of their Wolfguard battle leaders. So
Except for 1.
Right. But all the other ones, so any ones with jetpacks, any ones with bikes, any ones with on Thunder, all gone. They've lost all their Wolfguard pack leaders. So remember those like guys you could sprinkle into each unit, kind of like the Warlocks and Eldar? Yeah, they're all gone. You can't sprinkle people in anymore. We don't want to do that. Wolflord on Thunderwolf is gone.
That one surprised me that there isn't an option for that.
Yeah, and I'll get to the other part in a minute. The Wolfguard are gone because I guess they're replaced by the Wolfguard Headhunter or Head Takers. So that one I feel like is a swap. Cyberwolves are gone. I mean, I'm okay with that because you still got Fenrisian wolves. Cyberwolves were kind of just an alt variation of that. So, okay. Wolf Scouts are gone, aka use the Scouts out of the Space Marine Codex. Skyclaws are gone, aka use your Assault Marines out of the Space Marine Codex. Longfangs are gone, just use the Devastator Squad out of the Space Marine Codex. The Hounds of Mordecai are gone. This is a special named Reaver unit, just use the Reavers out of the Space Marine Codex.
No, don't use Reavers. Reavers aren't good.
Well, this is what they were, yeah. It doesn't matter. The Stormfang and Stormwolf Flyers are gone. And this one kind of hurts, because... Renegade Open, one of the years, I was into Space Wolves. I'm like, oh, they have a flyer. Yeah, let's get the flyer. I never put the flyer together because I didn't know which version I wanted to build. And now, well, it's gone from the Codex. So it doesn't matter. I'll just build one that looks cool someday. Oh, that one hurt. I know they're trying to cull flyers, but this is the first one I think we've seen that's actually been removed from a Codex.
Yeah, rather than just made bad.
Right. And then named characters. Crom Dragongaze is gone. Lucas the Trickster is gone. Canis Wolfborn is gone. And Harold Deathwolf is gone. which 2 of those were guys on Thunderwolf. So, as you noted, Rob, there's no 0 leaders who can lead your Thunderwolf cavalry.
Yeah, that really surprised. But we also don't have like captains on bikes. The only bike character we have is a chaplain on a bike. Even Kosaru Khan can't ride a bike anymore, which is utterly bizarre.
Samael.
Samael's on a jet bike. I'm talking like there's like 1 or 2, like no, there's like 1 named character who's on anything resembling a motorcycle, but there's no captains on bikes anymore. Like that's just not a thing.
I mean, but from what I've seen, this is the largest list I've seen culled, and this isn't Space Marines who have the largest list.
No.
And I mean, the other part for me that's a feels bad is I went through, because loadouts have changed too, which will maybe hit, maybe not. But I have like 30 models that are no longer legal. I know you guys went through this with your Terminators from Chaos, but this is the first time it's hit me so hard where like, that's like 3 to 6 units just gone. Well, and the flyer.
Not trying to minimize this, but I did literally just have that vision flash in my mind of the James Franco, like when he's like getting ready to be hung, and he looks over the next guy and goes, "First time." So yeah, like, I'm not trying to be insensitive because it does suck to lose units. Like I in no way like making fun of it. I'm just like, yeah, it happens.
Well, and the other part, like I went through that list, is a lot of these are like, oh yeah, you'll just use the Space Marine versions. And we'll get to that more in the list as well, because the Terminators, they want you to use the Space Marine Terminators as well. Which is sad because they made these Terminators look so cool. And oh yeah, but if you want better Terminators, use the Space Marine ones. Frustrates me.
That is unfortunate, especially because those new ones do look so cool.
I mean, they have a purpose. And we'll get into that when we get there. But just a lot of my Space Marine Terminators I can't run them as Space Wolf Terminators. I'll have to run them as just normal Space Marine Terminators with a Space Wolf tag on them because they look wolfy.
Yes. So, taking it from the top, we have Logan Grimnar, who has given up his sleigh. He's unhooked the wolves from it. They are just walking with him now.
Yeah. I'll say one of my frustrations with him too, like I said with my model, he looks cool, but I don't have wolves to go with him, and the sleigh doesn't have wolves to get him. So if you want to run him, you have to buy the new model.
Yeah. First time.
Yeah. No, I just went through this with Eldar. Remember?
That's right. Yeah. Are there no wolves on the current Logan Grimnar?
He has them pulling his sleigh. Have the sleigh version, but so not the infantry. Because he had an infantry version, and that one doesn't come with the wolves.
Because just pull them off the sleigh, pull the weird jumping like wolves that are pulling the sleigh, and there you go. Slap them on a new base.
I think they might be bigger.
Would not recommend that.
No.
But one thing I'll cover here, so we don't have to cover it on all the things. Everybody has plus 1 inch movement, so Space Wolves are fast. So
which is
Logan.
Good.
Actually moves 6 inches instead of 5 because he's in Terminator armor.
Yeah. Also, I did note he can only join the Wolfguard Terminators. So not all those other Terminators you have, just the new unit, right?
Yes.
Now, that said, he's an absolute killer in combat. The Aximor Kai is terrifying.
Oof, yeah.
6 attacks at strength 8 or 10 attacks at strength 6. All at AP -2.
And the High King of Fenris is amazing ability.
Yeah, because once per battle round your movement phase, you select 1 friendly Space Wolf units in strategic reserves until the end of the phase. For the purpose of setting up that unit on the battlefield, it's 1 turn higher, so he can come in turn 1. Stuff can come in from the table edges on turn 2, stuff like that.
And it doesn't have to be him. It's just he just is on the table. Someone else, you come in now. Come on.
Yeah. And if he's within 12 inches of an enemy unit, all their stratagem use for that unit is increased by 1, which is a lot.
Yeah. And I've had this used against me like in the narrative 1 game last year, and that is so frustrating when you're already limited on your CP and you're like, I could do this, but I'm at +1. I can't do it anymore. So yeah.
Yeah. And also they did work his wolves into his profile as 6 extra attacks. So he will absolutely destroy hordes.
And I mean, I like the idea of having your main leader have 2 wolves because that's what Lehman Russ had. So thumbs
Little
up.
Russ.
Yeah.
Let's see. We getting into it. We've got Njal Stormcaller with his new beautiful plastic model, and unfortunately, he is still kind of limited by being a psyker in an edition that doesn't allow you to actually do psychic stuff unless you are Thousand Suns. See previous episode.
I mean, this is a much better version of it. I'm slightly sad because the version I have is him in Terminator armor. This is him in power armor, so he's got a 3-up, 4-up save. But Space Wolf extra movement, he goes 7. And now by not being in Terminator, he can lead the 3, I'll call them all battle line, even though one's not battle line. The Blood Claws, Grey Hunters, or Wolfguard head takers. And his power, his air quote psychic ability, lets them have assault for the ranged weapons and auto move 6 when they advance. So he can help get you wherever you need to go. Doesn't give advance and charge, but he does everything else.
But he can cut down, like he can let you get into position turn 1 and then do the charge on turn 2.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And 2 of those units I listed are very much melee units.
Yes. Let's see. And then when he hits a non-monster, non-vehicle unit with living lightning, takes 6 inches of their range away. So again, it's like, I need to get into position, and the range on living lightning is 24 inches. If you can get somebody at 24 inches, there's not many units that are at 30, so 24 inches against the infantry unit might be enough to force them into a position where they are out in the open and thus far more chargeable. So I can totally see how that would work for them.
Yeah, he's very... I think he's a lot of utility, I'll say it that way.
Yeah. We've got Ulrich the Slayer, who did not get a new model this time around, but he is the named Wolf Priest in the army. And his Artificer Croesus is anti-monster, anti-vehicle 4-up.
I love that.
That is fantastic. And then, let's see, at the start of the battle, select one of the following keywords to be this model's Slayer's Oath, character, monster, or vehicle. The first time this model's unit destroys a unit with that keyword, if your detachment rule has a saga until the end of the battle, this unit gets to act like the saga has been completed. We'll get into that. That does only apply for the 3 detachments in this book. So you would not want to use him in a Gladius detachment because he'll lose one of his abilities. But he still adds 1 to the hit rolls like most chaplains for a unit, and if the Slayer, and if he targets a unit that has the Slayer Oath keyword, it's +1 to wound. So you can still use him. He works with the detachment abilities here well, which is kind of cool to see. You don't see many units that do that.
And kind of like how the Wraith Lord changed, you got to tailor what he was better at. Here, same thing. Are you going to be hunting characters, monsters, or vehicles? Tailor that. Then if you're fighting it, add 1 to your wound. So really, really nice.
Yeah. Bjorn the Fell-Handed, the oldest dreadnought in the Imperium.
The oldest model in the line.
Yes. But he remembers Russ. He met Lehman Russ. He knows Russ, or knew Russ.
He fought with
Very
him.
old.
I just wish they'd updated the model. The model it's beautiful, but I mean, he stands at like half as tall as a normal dreadnought now.
Yeah.
He looks like the dreadnought's like, I guess, old hunched down man who's like bent over with a cane.
Yeah,
and
but
he shouldn't be that way.
He is the oldest dreadnought, though. Like, he should be, he should be an old model. Like, honestly, I kind of wish they'd reverted it back to like the metal models.
On orc standards, he should be the largest dreadnought.
That's true.
Right?
I mean, we've already determined they have more teeth than anyone else, so they would be rich. Why not let them run by orc rules? But yeah, compared to Redemptor Dreads and Brutalis Dreads and things, it really becomes a don't talk to me or my son that way again kind of thing. But he also has a 5-up invulnerable, which gives him a lot more survivability.
Which he did not have before, so that's awesome.
But he also doesn't have nearly as many of the weapon options as he has before because he lost his options to take plasma or twin las cannons.
Get used to that. That's going to be across the board in this whole book. The options are gone. Well, they have to point cost different options. I don't know. I get the feeling if you want options, take it out of the Space Marine Codex. If you want Space Wolf stuff with not much options, play here. Yeah, we got you.
I was going to say, I thought you were going to say if you want options, play Old World.
Horse Hearsay.
Yeah.
The Horse Hearsay site is one of the greatest things that they've ever done.
It is really great, like S-tier marketing.
Yeah.
So the nice things are, bad thing, I guess, first, he lost half damage. That was always nice to have. Instead, he just gets -1 damage if it's higher than his toughness, which we're seeing a lot more of that for beefier units. So he's got 9 toughness, so it's got to be a big laser anyway. So he'll be harder to wound, which is good. And the point that's really cool is he gives you a CP just by being there.
Yes. Let's see. We've got Ragnar Blackmane, who did get a new model last time around when they dragged him across the Rubicon Primaris after he had a run-in with Gazgul.
Yeah, but that was a few years ago.
It was. I mean, not new model in this latest batch, but he does have. Yeah. But like, I think Ulrich the Slayer is the earliest character model in this particular batch.
Because I think he's the only non-Primaris Marine character. Anyway.
Probably.
Yeah. Let's see. Ragnar, what he's interesting because he has a different ability based on what kind of unit he's leading, because he can lead Bloodclaws or Wolfguard Head Takers. If he's leading Bloodclaws, then they can reroll wound rolls. If he's leading Head Takers, they can advance and charge.
And that's only because I think one of them already has advance and charge, so they didn't. That's why they separated it out.
Yeah,
right.
I like the idea of Wolfguard Heart Takers, though. Like, that's just really funny to me.
Let's see. We've got Arjak Rockfist, Temu Thor.
I also just love he's got 6 inches of movement. This seems so cool to me.
Yeah, like a lot of armies lately, even like Thousand Suns. Well, Thousand Suns Terminators still move 5. Their troops moved up to 6. But a lot of the Death Guard Terminators moved, I think, up to 5 from 4. They were
they were very slow.
Yeah. The only negative I see off the bat is he can only lead Wolfguard Terminators, but that'll be a repeated thing.
Yeah. And his hammer is anti-monster 3, anti-vehicle 3, assault if you're throwing it, precision if you're swinging it.
Yeah, it is so nice.
That's fantastic.
It's about time we're seeing some of these weapons that have we're seeing more anti-vehicle, anti-monster on things like thunder hammers that really should have it. Mm-hmm. The unit he's leading gets fight on death on a 4-up. And if he's targeting characters, re-roll hit rolls and re-roll wound rolls.
Yep, he's had that one forever.
But super solid.
But it's nice having precision to make sure you hit him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We've got the new Wolf Priest. This is actually a new unit, one of the few new units in the book. And this is your basically not chaplain, but also a little bit of an apothecary mixed in too, because he can restore dead bodyguards to a unit. And while he's leading them, they add 1 to the wound roll. So he is both an apothecary and a chaplain. He is all things to all people. The Iron Priest is your Tech Marine. There is also, well, it's not an old model, but I remember didn't the Iron Priest have 2 different profiles at one point?
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Even with this one, I don't know if there's a misprint or not, because he's got an ability. The Gift of the Iron Wolf is the one that lets you regain lost wounds to a vehicle. And instead of giving them +1 to hit, it gives them rapid fire 1. But then after that, it says each model can only be selected for this ability or Blessing of the Omnissiah once per turn. So it's I guess it's just.
But he doesn't have an ability called Blessing of the Omnissiah.
Right, but they're calling this out. I'm realizing now because you can have a Tech Marine and an Iron Priest in the same army.
So that's what they're okay.
So you can only give them either rapid fire or +1, or you can only heal them with one or the other.
Yeah, you can't take 3 Iron Priests and then 3 Tech Marines. I get it.
This goes back to you're pulling out the Sky Claws, you're pulling out all the named units from them. But yeah, here's an Iron Priest and an Iron the Wolf Priest. But yeah, you can still use your Tech Priest and your Apothecaries too. I don't get it.
It's the messiness of having this being a Space Marine supplement.
Just make it its own codex and give us all the units back.
Right. Well, and also, we talked about how many units they cut, but they're also still trying to let people use some of the models. Because, again, this is also not a Primaris Tech Marine. This is built in older power armor. He's a cool-looking model.
He is.
But it's like they're trying to balance the older models, like having some of the older models available, but not all of them, because we're getting rid of all the characters on Thunderwolves. So it's very confusing. Let's see. The Wolfguard Battle Leader, which is basically your lieutenant-ish, kind of.
Gosh dang, that model looks so good.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, while you're leading a unit, they have sustained hits 1, and if they're within 6 inches, reroll their hit rolls of 1. And he himself gets a fight on death on a 2-up, and he can take either a power weapon or a thunder hammer, which has devastating wounds. He can have a storm shield, or you can replace it with a pistol. Why would you? None of the pistols are so good as to be worth giving up the extra. Well, I guess he has the 4-up invulnerable either way. The storm shield just gives him an extra wound.
Yep.
Okay. I still think I'd rather take the extra wound than a pistol for this guy.
Yeah.
And to be honest, the shield looks amazing.
The shield does look amazing.
And sometimes I've put models together because of the looks rather than the play.
Yeah, all the Space Wolves have awesome shields. See, and then we get Blood Claws, which are the young, impulsive Space Wolves who, they're basically your Assault Intercessors, because they're the equivalent.
Okay.
Really.
Except you can take 20 of these guys.
Yes, that is horrifying.
And they can advance and charge.
They can't advance and charge. Yeah.
Okay, that's everything about them. I mean, they have no options for ranged weapons. They have no options for melee weapons. It's just, here's 10 to 20 that can assault and charge. They've got like 4 attacks. They're really good.
And then you've got their Grey Hunters, which would have been their equivalent of Tactical Marines back in the day. Now it's kind of, sort of, not quite the equivalent of regular intercessors. They're like slightly more assaulty intercessors, but not assault intercessors.
And I believe intercessors have like either assault and heavy on their weapons, and these guys just have rapid fire. So right. I mean, they just feel very watered down, and you don't get options for their ranged weapons again, and they don't really have a great ability. I would take Blood Claws over Grey Hunters. And then I'd take Intercessors over Grey Hunters. So, I mean, I don't know where this unit fits.
Yeah. They're really, looks like they're made to mostly try to push people off objectives because they can reroll wounds against people on objectives.
I did see one difference. OC3 for the squad.
Whoa.
I didn't know.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at that. Yeah, you're right. The OC3 is solid.
So if they did hold a point, it would, you can take points. They'll probably die quickly because they're only 3-up armor with no invuln and 2 wounds. But if you need to take one, maybe that's what their place is. Let's go take this point.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, because they come in squads of 10, not squads of 5 to 10. They come in squads of 10. And that's 30 OC on a point. That's not shabby.
You just got to get there, I guess.
You got to get Rhino. There. Yeah. Yeah.
Which the Rhino's not in this codex.
Also, they can't get in a Rhino because they're Tacticus. They would have to take a repulsor.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, they're Tacticus, so they can't fit in Rhinos because Rhinos can't take Tacticus models. Same with Blood Claws. Not that you could fit 20 of them in, but
right.
Anyway.
Oh, that's more grumblings.
Yeah. See, then we get to our Wolfguard Head Takers, our last new unit.
This unit just looks fun. I mean, one, it looks cool, but the fact that once you take them, and you can put a leader on them, but then you split them off into 2 units, your Space Marine unit and your Wolf unit, which I like that.
So this would be the closest thing they would have, like their equivalent to like Inner Circle whatever the Dark Angels.
Inner Circle Companions?
Inner Circle Companions. That Companions was the word I was looking for. Yeah, so this is the equivalent of like the Inner Circle Companions, or kind of the sanguinary guard of Space Wolves because they're units of 3 to 6, kind of Blade Guard veteran style.
Yeah, I was thinking they're like the Blade Guard vets.
Yeah. So yeah, you split off the head takers from the hunting wolves that they can take. And then at the start of the battle, select one unit from your opponent's army to be this unit's quarry. Weapons equipped by head takers have precision and devastating wounds against the quarry. And each time this unit's quarry is destroyed, you pick a new one.
Yeah, so this is a neat thing. Like you saw something with Ulrich the Slayer of, let's pick characters, monsters, or vehicles, go after them. These guys are like, oh yeah, we want that guy or that guy's unit or something. And then they're just like, boom, 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 we're going to kill that. Oh, we're done? Okay, let's go kill something else. And they've got 3 wounds each. This is a solid unit.
3 wounds each, 4 up invuln if you take the Storm Shield, which is the default. Otherwise, you can take paired Mastercrafted power weapons to get 2 extra attacks each.
I'd take the Storm Shield.
Yeah, you'd want the 4 up invuln. Let's see, they're hunting wolves if they're within 6 inches of a character. They're OC1 instead of OC0, so...
And the other interesting thing, when you take the unit, it can go from 3 to 6, and your wolves, you can still have it 0. So, the box comes with 3 and 3, I believe.
But if you don't want to take the wolves, you don't have to.
Exactly. So, it's just neat unit.
Thunderwolf Cav really didn't change a whole lot. They still can't take functional Thunderhammers. They can be modeled with Thunderhammers, but they aren't actually Thunderhammers.
The Wolfguard weapons.
Yes.
But their biggest change is they gain 2 inches of movement. So they're moving 12 inches.
Which is good. 12 inches of movement is nothing to sneeze at. And they can still take Storm Shields, so they can have 4 up invuln, which I think you would want to.
Yeah. They're still solid, a mobile unit, but I don't think they have the destructive power to make them competitive compared to the other units we've seen.
No, 4 attacks on the charge.
At 3 damage.
Yeah, 3 damage because they're +1 damage on the charge. But strength 5, AP -2. They're good at fighting Marines, but that's not what you want Wolfguard for. You have plenty of things in this army that can kill Marines.
Yeah.
And without having any characters that can lead them,
there's no buffs for them.
Yep. Right. I just feel like they are, for the longest time, they were like the centerpiece feature unit for Space Wolves, and now they feel kind of like an afterthought, which is sad. Wolfguard Terminators, that new Terminator unit, which is an not all assault, because you do have an assault cannon and storm bolters, so they're not like full-on assault.
No, this is the weirdest unit ever, as I think I'm going to drag over my thing to do my small little rant. The default weapons are Storm Bolter and Power Weapon. Okay. But see, not Power Fist, Power Weapon. Any of them can have Storm Shield, so cool. One can have the assault cannon with the Power Fist. There's your Power Fist on one guy. Only one guy gets it. The leader can take the Twin Lightning Claws or a Relic Great Axe. Okay, cool. I get Twin Lightning Claws on one guy.
Yep,
so
that tracks.
Yep.
If you want Thunder Hammers and Storm Shields, you have to go to the Space Marine Codex. If you want all Twin Lightning Claws, like there was even a was it Formations back then? The Lightning Claw guys.
Mm-hmm.
That's now only in the Space Marine Codex. So the good assault versions are in the Space Marine Codex, not the Wolfguard Codex, and the Space Marine Codex has 5 inches of movement while these have 6. What makes this one more unique is the fact you can take Storm Shields with things, so you could have Storm Shields and Storm Bolters to make a really defensive shooty unit.
Mm-hmm.
And their rule is the strength of attack is greater than their toughness -1 to wound. So the standard thing we see on beefy units.
Yeah.
And also they don't have the teleport homer rule, so you can't actually... Well, teleport homer rule just made it easier to teleport in on some things, but so you can still teleport wherever you want because they have Deep Strike, but I don't know.
Actually, you can't do what you said earlier because you replace the Storm Bolter with the Storm Shield.
Okay, fine.
So, yeah, if you take the Storm Shield, they are melee all day.
And their master-crafted power weapons are okay, but like the Thunderwolves, it's a Marine killer. That's it. The only good thing about them is they can be a Logan Grimnar or our Jack Rockfist delivery unit.
Mm-hmm.
What's really frustrating is you look at Codex Dark Angels, a something we didn't touch on in the fluff section, but this is a chapter that has had a long-running but kind of friendly feud with the Space Wolves. All of their custom Terminators, the Deathwing Terminators, the Deathwing Knights, have a rule that says, hey, if a character from your army could join a Terminator squad, they can join this.
Yes.
There's no reason why you couldn't have had Logan Grimnar say he can join a Terminator squad.
Yes. I mean, I'll agree with that. Or have Codex Space Marine Terminators join these.
Yeah.
Is that a thing that you think they might FAQ?
A thing I hope they FAQ. I don't know that they will or not.
If this feels like an intentional choice,
this does feel like an intentional choice to us.
But yeah.
So I mean, it just I like the concept, but by them taking away like all of the assault Terminators and making this, I can't tell if it wants to be a shooting. I mean, it's just either your normal Terminator unit, or you can make it air quote assault unit, but then it's just power weapons.
Mm-hmm.
It's just oh my gosh.
They're equipped. This squad is pretty much equipped like a chaos squad. It's that same kind of weird mix of there's one guy that can have this weapon combination, one guy gets this weapon combination, and yeah, you get the one guy with dual lightning claws and the one guy with a heavy gun, and it's just all over the place.
I guess maybe that's what they're going for, make them feel like a Chaos Terminator squad. I don't know.
Which is not a good thing, so I'm not,
But I mean,
we famously love Chaos Terminators.
I'm not as fond of the rules since like I mentioned at the start of this, all of my Terminator squads I will be running as Space Marine Terminators because they don't match up with this.
Yeah.
So I guess that means I have to get a new box of this if I want to run this.
Right. Let's see. Moving on. Fenrisian wolves. Well, they got an extra attack with their teeth and claws.
Well,
yay.
And they have no OC, but they get it if they're within 6 inches of a character. Is there any point to taking these?
Screening?
I guess that's for screening because they don't do much else.
I mean, technically, so 4 toughness. I mean, are these the exact same as the ones from the other unit?
Yep, they're the same as the ones with the head takers.
So yeah. And they have the same rule of having an OC. Actually, no, the hunting hounds. Yeah, the exact same extra rule if they're with a character they get. So yeah. They're here if you want to take them, but you didn't want to take them in the hunting squad. Taker squad. Oh my.
I don't know if there's any benefit in taking it. I mean, it's a fluff piece.
It's a way to be able to take 6 units of wolves, like. Oh,
yes.
You want to?
Yeah. I mean, for thematic, like I can see it from a thematic point of view, but yeah, they're not a good unit. Then we get to Wulfen. Turns out we couldn't balance Wulfen properly because we don't have war gear points, so we split them into 2 units. So now you can have 6 units of Wulfen. Would you want to? That's the question.
In previous editions, maybe.
I mean, here's my gripe with the Wulfen now. By breaking them into 2 separate squads, one with shields, one without shields, my Wulfen were a mix. So now I have to get another box to make one squad with shields, one squad without shields.
Fair enough. So you've got the Wulfen without shield who have just the Wulfen weapons, whatever weapons they happen to be equipped with, which is generally like the big frost axes and things like that, which decent infantry killers. Hit 3 attacks hitting on 3, strength 5, AP -2, 2 damage. Units have to make desperate escape checks to fall back from them.
That's very nice. But their weapons were changed a lot. They went from 6 attacks down to 3.
Mm-hmm.
But they also now get 2 AP on them, and they used to be damage 1, they're now damage 2. So the weapons are better and have sustained hits, so you can maybe get an extra few in there.
Yep.
The other thing about the unit overall is they gained a toughness and lost OC. But, I mean, the Curse of the Wulfen rule, you can get it by having a character close by.
Right.
But
these are not guys who used to take objectives. These are the
No.
guys you take to take heads.
9-inch movement, a bunch of attacks with sustained hits. I mean, maybe not as many attacks as like Kevin's, but T6. I mean, this is a solid unit, and they have better ballistic skill. They're at ballistic skill 4, so I mean,
Would you take the ballistic skill? Like, would you take the auto launcher, or do you take the death totem instead so they can reroll hits of 1 in melee?
probably the death totem.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think you take the death totem for them.
Yeah.
I mean, like, sure, some blast grenades are assault blast grenades are kind of fun, but no, I think you take the reroll hits of 1, so you're only missing on 2s. Then you get to Wulfen with storm shields, which is where the real money payout is, because their thunder hammers are anti-monster, anti-vehicle 3-up.
This is what Thunderhammer should have been.
Yes, totally agree. The stat line, 2 attacks each, hitting on 3s, strength 5, AP -2, 3 damage, but as we mentioned, anti-monster, anti-vehicle 3. And also, after you have fought, select a monster or vehicle unit hit by 1 or more of their attacks. That vehicle is then suppressed and is -1 to hit until the end of the next turn. So
I still don't fully understand that.
I think it's more that the vehicle or monster is vaguely stunned by being smacked with thunderhammers.
But if you're fighting it, you're in engagement range with it. If they're going to fire their weapons outside of engagement with big guns never tire, they're at -1 to hit.
No, it's not. Well, the thing to keep in mind is it's not just range attacks; it's all their attacks. So if you're fighting a monster in melee, like a Mauler Fiend or a Hive Tyrant or something like that.
Okay, I see.
Yeah,
because monsters. Fair, because I was more leaned on. Well, I've got that, but yeah, if you're fighting something who's going to fight you back in melee, then yes, yep, that's how it would be played.
Right, and it's until the end of the next turn. So even if that vehicle manages to have a fall back and shoot or something like that, they're still -1 to hit. So yeah, it does suck that it doesn't stack with the penalty for big guns never tire. But yeah, the fact that it works against their melee attacks, and if for some reason your Wulfen all get wiped out, they'll still it'll still be a -1 to hit. So
no, I'm all for. I was gonna say I'm all for this Wulfen unit. I really like them. I just wish I had like an airship that could like fly in and deliver like a squad of 10 of them. I mean, that would just be super cool.
Unfortunately, that is the flying brick that you no longer get.
I know. That's my complaint.
Just make it a Storm Raven. It's fine. Just run it. Counts as Storm Raven.
Wow. Just file off the wolf parts and put
keep the wolf parts on there and just call it a Storm Raven. Like at this point, has anyone seen a Storm Raven on the table in years? Probably people don't remember what they look like.
Yeah.
Wow.
Fair.
Wow. Okay.
Or dip into Legends and run it as a Storm Eagle or something.
Well, if it's in Legends, it'll still be there.
Yeah, it'll probably still be in Legends.
All right, moving on. Now we get into the named and unnamed Wulfen Dreadnoughts. The named one is Murderfang.
He's also too short.
Also too short because he's the old boxy. It's like, man, you really could have done a Brutalis.
I mean, I was when I saw the others, I was expecting a Murderfang Bjorn dual kit of a more Brutalis level model, and they didn't. I'm sad.
Murderfang is not the blender he used to be, though.
Oh no, he lost whenever he got shot at. He could shoot or melee after being targeted with an attack. That was crazy. Oh, I hit him. Oh yeah, I'm hitting you back. Now instead, he is like a banner carrier for Wulfen. He gives them a 6-inch. He is a 6-inch bubble of Wulfen fight on death on a 4-up. I'm actually fond of that because Wulfen don't have. This is the only real buff they get,
right?
And having him as the quasi leader, that would be a blender I'd be kind of a little scared of a Death Star pack of him and like 2 squads of Wulfen just running on either flank.
Yeah. He does have advance and charge, so that's pretty good. And he is still a T9 vehicle, so he can advance and charge and tank shock and
wait,
his attacks.
He's charge.
Bestial Fury, you can reroll, or no, you re-roll advance
Okay.
and charge. Sorry, I misread that. He cannot.
I was like, man, he advanced and charge. That's amazing.
Well, your note actually says gained advance and charge.
Oh, then I
Onward.
reread it wrong, and then my bad.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
No,
I read it wrong.
He can re-roll. Okay, yeah, he can re-roll advance and charge, which is not nearly as cool. I mean, it's still good, but
Yeah.
it's still good, but it's not advance and charge good.
Yeah, my bad.
But I mean, he's okay. He's not the blender he used to be, though. I think you only take him if you're doing a Wulfen themed army, like if you're leaning hard into Wulfen.
Agreed.
And then the generic Wulfen Dread, who does not even get a picture.
That's one of the things that bothers me too. They're big on like, hey, if it doesn't have a model, we don't want it here. It's like, well, does the Wulfen Dreadnought not have a model because you have no picture for it? Why? I'm surprised it still made the cut. That's what I'm saying.
Right. It's basically a less good version of Murderfang, but with different abilities. Like, you can take him with dual weapons and they get twin linked, which
Not
I
a
mean,
fan.
they're equipped with dual weapons by default. You can choose to replace one of them with a blizzard shield, which does give it a 4-up invulnerable, which is good. Don't get me wrong, a Dreadnought with a 4-up invuln is good. And like the Fenrisian Great Axe is a terrifying weapon, 6 attacks hitting on 3, strength 10, AP -2, D6 +1, or 12 attacks hitting on 3, strength 6, AP -2, damage 1. That's probably the one I would go with rather than the Great Wolf. Well, the Great Wolf Claw's not bad either. 6 attacks, strength 10, AP -3, 3 damage. You can trade either of them for the Storm Shield.
Yeah, I think mine is kitted out just from ages ago of the Great Axe plus the shield, so that's how I'll use it.
And then after each time an enemy is selected to shoot, after the unit has shot, if this model lost any, basically you get a surge move.
Yes.
D6 plus 2-inch surge move, which I think is appropriate. That seems like the right ability to give this thing, so I don't hate it. Now we discover why we can't have a picture of the Wulfen Dreadnought, because that picture was used for the Venerable Dreadnought, which is equipped exactly the same way, except it can take a Multi-Melta or a Hellfrost cannon.
Or assault cannon, or it's you're shooting one that can have a weapon and a shield. So it's like, oh my, why?
It does look comical, especially when you consider the proportions of the old dreadnoughts compared to like a Redemptor.
Oh, I remember back in the day when you could have like Bjorn as a leader and you could make a dreadnought army.
Yes.
Now, if I tried that in this edition with all the others, because I've got one of each of them for the Space Wolves, and yeah, Bjorn just looked so sad next to all of them. And at least the Wulfen Dread and the Venerable Dread were the same size, but it's still just the others just behemoth over them. And the other thing I say why is the Space Marine Venerable Dreadnought is similar enough to this one that I might just, well, actually, no, I'd probably take neither of them and just go for like a Brutalis or a Ballistus or a...
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't get why this one.
I think, yeah, that's the thing about this, is like, there's nothing that these dreadnoughts do that a Brutalis won't just do better.
Right. The only dreadnought that I really like in the book is really Bjorn. And that's mostly because he's got all the leader abilities, because he's a character.
Right.
But I just don't like, I mean, I like his model. It just, he needs a glow up.
Yeah.
But yeah, these dreadnoughts now.
Yeah. And the Venerable Dreadnought, it's a 6-inch aura of +1 to advance and charge rolls made for Space Wolves. Yay. I mean, it's not nothing. It's a little bit of a force multiplier, but there's so many better choices.
I mean, if you really wanted that extra advance and charge, kind of like Murderfang hanging out on Wulfen, have him hang around your Blood Claws.
Yep.
That's about the only thing I could see.
So that's all the units in the book. So let's look at those 3 detachments. And
I'll just say this as we finish the units. That's all the units that are in the book. But as I said at the start, you're gonna need to supplement this army with a lot of units from the Space Marines. like some of the like Dark Angels, it was a no-brainer. You're going to use mostly Space Marine units and then filter in just some of these as your characters. And I think Blood Angels were similar, Rob, where you're going to lean more on Space Marine units and then filter in whatever Blood Angels specific ones you want.
Yeah, like Blood Angels tend to lean on their characters a lot, and then like Sanguinary Guard, like they're one,
Right.
like, but yeah.
So characters and splash, and I'm viewing this as the same way. The only real ones that I'd say you really will want is Wulfen, if you're leaning that way. If not, Blood Claws and take a leader for the Blood Claws, and then the Terminators just to have a character delivery system for one of the two good characters. But other than that, you have to fill in the rest of it with Space Marine units. So just be aware of that.
Mm-hmm. So getting into the detachments, they've decided to keep leaning into the saga theme. And so we have 3 saga themed detachments, each of which has a thing you're trying to do and then a reward for doing it.
I think this is the best implementation of sagas that they've ever done. Because when they were just on a character, it was clunky. If they made it an enhancement thing, it was clunky. Here, your whole pack, army is working together for this. I think the sagas as detachments works for me.
Yeah, and I like how they're worded. They all, like, none of them seem so, like, because in the past some of the sagas were like, if you weren't fighting the right thing, you got no benefit.
Yeah.
And it seems like this is a better version of that. However, I do have a few issues with some of the things, like some of the way the rules are worded. Because you mentioned that you're going to want to splash in a lot of space, like you're going to want to use Space Marine stuff primarily and then splash in. That's going to be a problem with some of this stuff. So, for example, we'll start with the first one, Saga of the Hunter. The idea is cool. Every time a model in a unit from your army makes a melee attack that targets an enemy unit, if that enemy unit is within engagement range of one or more other units from your army, or if the attacking unit contains more models than the enemy unit, so you are outnumbering them, you add 1 to the hit roll. If the saga is completed, you add 1 to the wound roll. And then at the start of the first battle round, you have a quarry tally. It starts as 0. Every time you destroy an enemy unit in the fight phase, you add 1 to the total, and once you hit the required quarry tally for your game size, so like 2,000 point game, it's 3. So if you've killed 3 enemy units in the fight phase, the saga is completed, which means everybody gets +1 to wound when you hit those particular requirements. However, I left a couple of words out on purpose because as I read it, it seems cool. Hey, you get into close combat, you kill units, you bump up your quarry total. No, it's each time a model in a Space Wolves unit. Space Wolves keyworded unit from your army makes a melee attack that targets an enemy unit. If that enemy unit is within engagement range of 1 or more other Adeptus Astartes units from your army, or if the attacking unit contains more models than the enemy unit. That means your regular Astartes, so like let's say you take Assault Intercessors, they don't get the benefit to hit because they aren't Space Wolves units. They do not get the chapter keyword.
This goes back to your thing before. I had assumed, and now I'm going back in the Sons of Rest thing, and yeah, you are right how it's not worded that way. It says you can take them, but...
And this is why I said the fix to the Bloodless Angels thing, which they fixed by saying, oh, well, you can't get if you take a detachment from the Space Marine Codex, you can't get like the extra +1 to wound on Oath of Moment if you have anything in your army containing like Blood Angels or Space Wolves. I said the easiest fix would have been if you are playing a Space Wolf detachment, give them all the Space Wolf keyword. If you're playing Blood Angels, give them the Blood Angels keyword. It's so easy.
The closest thing we have, Rob, is in the designer's notes. It does say the rules presented in this section assume that the Adeptus Astartes units in your army are from the Space Wolves chapter. But to your point, don't assume, just give them that keyword if you're...
Right. So they don't have the key. So let's say you take this. You take your assault intercessors. They don't get the +1 to hit.
They have to fix this.
But your blood claws would get the +1 to hit roll. Your assault terminators don't, but your Wolfguard terminators do.
No, I see. I just read the designer and I'm like, everything's Space Wolves, but you're right. The way they worded it. Why?
Yeah, that's the problem with this. It gets worse. Your enhancements are only for Space Wolf models.
No, not all of them.
One of them's not. But I guess two of them. But so like the Wolfguard battle leader and the Wolf Priest, and I guess the Iron Priest can take enhancements for two of them. So like Swift Hunters, Space Wolves only. Models in the Bears unit have Scout 7 inches, which is good for this army. Fenrisian Grit, Adeptus Astartes model only. You get 4 up, feel no pain. Very good. Wolfmaster, Space Wolves only. In your command phase, select a friendly Space Wolves unit within 9 inches. Until the start of your next command phase, Teeth and Claws and Tirnak and Fenrir weapons, which is Logan Grimnar's wolves, equipped by models in that unit have the lethal hits ability. So I guess you pick Logan Grimnar within 9 inches and his wolves get lethal hits. Yay. Wow. You pick your Fenrisian wolves? No, that's a bad. Yeah. That's a bad enhancement. And then Feral Rage, Adeptus Astartes only. Add 1 to the attack's characteristic of melee weapons equipped by the bearer. Every time you charge, you add an additional attack. Okay, that's cool.
Rob, I just thought of another way we can fix this problem.
How's that?
Make this a codex, pull all the other things like Dreadnoughts and things, and just give me my standalone codex for Space Wolves again. That would fix this problem.
And I was looking this up because I'm like, okay, so how is the how are the Dark Angels worded? All their enhancements are Adeptus Astartes, and their detachment rule targets Adeptus Astartes.
Oh gosh,
they don't mention Darking. The Inner Circle task force is all Deathwing, but that makes sense. That's the Deathwing detachment, and the Raven Wing is the Raven Wing detachment. Those are fine. But yeah, the one that is meant to be used with like generic Space Marine stuff all says it like Adeptus Astartes. Blood Angels, by comparison, just so that we're all talking about the same thing. Liberator Assault Group, it's all Adeptus Astartes. The Death Company detachment is all Death Company, and then the Angelic Host is all like Adeptus Astartes jump pack. So Space Wolves stand alone and getting absolutely screwed by their keyword.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I'm reading through. It'll get worse, but yeah.
Yeah. Their strats also are mostly, not entirely. There's it's like half and half Space Wolves and Adeptus Astartes. So, envelop and ensnare. In your fight phase, select a Space Wolves unit, excluding monsters and vehicles, so no Murder Fang for you. From your army that has not been selected to fight this phase, you get a 6-inch consolidation or pile-in. Territorial advantage for CP. This one targets Adeptus Astartes just after one of your Astartes units has destroyed an enemy unit. You make an objective marker sticky because it's covered in gore, I'm guessing. Overwhelming Onslaught for CP. Select 2 Adeptus Astartes units with an engagement range of an enemy unit, or 1 Space Wolves Beasts unit from your army, so Fenrisian Wolves. Until the end of the phase, each time a model of that enemy unit makes an attack, subtract 1 from the hit roll. Why would you waste that on wolves? Chosen Prey. This one only targets Space Wolves. In your movement phase, just after a Space Wolves unit in your army falls back, they can shoot or charge.
I still like that. I mean, it's a restriction to Space Wolves, but it's solid. It's a
good strat. It's just other than the targeting being limited. Bounding Advance. In your movement phase or charge phase for CP, select a Space Wolves infantry or beast unit from your army that has not been selected to move or charge yet. Until the end of the phase, they can move through non-Titanic models as long as they don't end up in engagement range with anything that they didn't charge.
I still think this one is good, especially since most of your fast-moving melee that you'd want to go through things have the Space Wolves keyword. So
yeah. And then marked for destruction, this one targets Astartes in your shooting phase. 2 Adeptus Astartes units from your army that have not been selected to shoot this phase. This matters because most of your Space Wolf units have crap for shooting weapons. So.
Yes, pretty much.
So select an enemy unit visible to both of them. As long as they both attack that unit, reroll wound rolls of 1. It's fine. But this detachment. I love the idea of the sagas, and then they hamstrung it with the keywords, and that is so frustrating. Saga of the Bold. This one is your character detachment. Cool idea. The rule, each time an Adeptus Astartes, okay, we're off to a good start. Adeptus Astartes unit from your army is selected to shoot or fight. Apply one of the following when resolving those attacks. If your saga is completed, you re-roll a hit roll, a wound roll, and a damage roll. Or otherwise, if it's a Space Wolf character, you can re-roll one of them.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's if you've completed the saga, any of your Astartes units can re-roll a hit roll, a wound roll, and a damage roll. If it's not, it has to be a Space Wolf character, and they can re-roll one of them.
So you need to complete the saga.
You absolutely have to complete the saga. However, to complete your saga, you have to use Space Wolf characters. Each time a Space Wolf character unit from your army does one or more of the following, that unit achieves this boast. Once you have 3 or more different boasts, your saga is complete. So your hide is a trophy. The unit destroys an Oath of Moment target. Slay them all. The unit destroys your Oath of Moment target, and that is the second Oath of Moment target destroyed by that unit in this battle. Overrun their position. At the end of either player's turn, you're wholly within your opponent's deployment zone, or hold the line from the second battle round onwards. At the end of the command phase, the unit is within range of an objective marker, not within your deployment zone. So basically, at any point other than the first turn, you're on an objective in like no man's land.
Yeah.
You have completed a boast.
All of those are doable. Mm-hmm. And you should be able to get it by turn 3, I think. But as you were saying, you need the Space Wolf characters who can only lead Space Wolf units, which leads you to be a Space Wolf army, which they don't even have vehicles.
Yeah.
I mean, Emperor's Children has more variety than these guys.
Yeah. God, that's a sad state of affairs. Again, your enhancements are kind of back and forth. Braggart Steel, Space Wolves only. Add 2 to the strength characteristic of your melee weapons. If the bear's unit has achieved 1 or more boasts, add 1 to their damage. That one's really good. I like it. Yes. It's a shame it's limited to like 2 character types, really. Skjald, Adeptus Astartes model only, who thus cannot complete your saga. Possibly. He might not be able to. He could be a Space Wolves Adeptus Astartes. Each time a Space Wolves character unit from your army achieves a boast, if the bear is on the battlefield, you gain a CP. That's kind of a must take, I would think.
Yeah. It was one I highlighted as I really like.
Yeah. Horde Slayer, Space Wolves only. At the start of the fight phase, if there are more enemy models than friendly models within 6 inches of the bearer, until the end of the phase, add 2 to his attacks. If the bear's unit has achieved 1 or more boasts, add 3 to the attacks. Kind of specific on who you're fighting.
That's the weakest one in my mind.
Yeah. And then Thunderwolf's Fortune, Adeptus Astartes only. You get back up from death with 3 wounds remaining on a 2-up the first time you die.
I love this one on a character, so
that one's always good on a character. And the fact that it's any Adeptus Astartes unit is good. It just, unfortunately, it won't be a character who can help you complete your boasts. It's just so frustrating. And again, the stratagems are back and forth. Inspiring Presence for CP. Select an Adeptus Astartes character in the fight phase who hasn't fought yet. They get lethal hits. Very cool. Lethal hits on a character. Great. Champion's Guidance for CP. In your shooting or fight phase, select a Space Wolves character that hasn't been selected to shoot or fight yet. They can reroll hits. Basically, it gives them an oath of moment against everybody for a phase. Birth of a Saga for CP. In your command phase, target one Wolfguard Headtaker or Wolfguard Terminator Pack Leader model from your army. Until the start of your next command phase, that your model has the character keyword, so it becomes a Space Wolf character temporarily.
Because you need them.
You do need them. While in effect, your model's unit is therefore a character unit, meaning it can interact with the Heroes All rule in addition to all other rules that interact with character units. They do make sure that it calls that out. I do appreciate the designer's note there. Alpha Strike. In your charge phase, choose an Adeptus Astartes character unit. They can charge after advancing. Okay,
Solid.
Cool. Solid. Heroic Resolve for 2 CP. In your opponent's shooting phase, just after they've selected a Space Wolf's character to shoot at, you reduce the incoming damage on each attack by 1.
I like it. I don't like the CP, though.
2 CP is a lot, but I understand you have to keep your characters alive. Unfortunately, your characters can also just be drowned under a sea of bolter fire in many cases, in which case this will do nothing. And then counter charge for 2 CP at the end of your opponent's charge phase. You select an Adeptus Astartes character unit from your army that is within 6 inches of one or more enemy units and would be eligible to declare a charge. You can now declare a charge, but you don't get a charge bonus, even if it's successful. Okay, fine. It's a heroic intervention that doesn't require somebody else to have charged in.
Yeah.
But again, half of the, like, you have to take Space Wolf specific characters for this to really work. Which, I mean, you'll want to, most likely, but it still feels like a massive oversight. And finally, the one detachment that doesn't necessarily screw you over for playing mixed units. Saga of the Beast Slayer. And I do like this one because they added one keyword in here that makes this work against any army. So each time an Adeptus Astartes model, yes, from your army makes an attack, if that attack targets a character, monster, or vehicle, not just monster or vehicle, which was kind of Beast Slayer thing in the past, character, monster, or vehicle, or if your saga is completed, the attack has lethal hits. And then at the start of the first battle round, your Beast Slayer tally is 0, and you determine your Beast Slayer target by halving the number of units from your opponent's army that have one or more of the following keywords: character, monster, or vehicle. Each time an Adeptus Astartes unit from your army shoots or fights after all of those attacks have been resolved, add 1 to the Beast Slayer tally for each enemy unit with one or more of the following keywords destroyed by the attack's character, monster, or vehicle. Once your Beast Slayer tally is equal to or greater than your Beast Slayer target, so basically, after you have killed half of their characters, monsters, or vehicles, then you have completed the saga, and you get lethal hits on everything against everything, because
right.
It's... Yeah. And this one works with Adeptus Astartes.
And
completely
this is
across the board.
Only one that I don't know that you really need the saga to be completed to get the biggest effect, because the biggest effect is monsters and vehicles and characters are your toughest thing. So getting lethal hits on them is amazing.
Right.
I don't need it to go kill your troops or your battle line. I don't need lethal hits for those.
Yeah. Let's see. And then your enhancements. Wolf Touched. Space Wolves model only. Add 2 inches to the move characteristic of the bearer, and they can join Wulfen or Wulfen with Storm Shields. That's solid.
I like that a lot.
I do like that one a lot. Hunter's Guile. Any Adeptus Astartes model. After both players have deployed their armies, select up to 3 Thunderwolf Cav, Wulfen, and or Bloodclaws units and set them up in reserves.
Still useful.
Nice. Still useful, yeah. Especially if you have Logan Grimnar who can treat the turn as 1 higher.
Fair, yeah.
So, now you have them in reserves and they can come in on, whatever table edge earlier. Elder's Guidance, Space Wolves model only. Once per battle at the start of the fight phase, if the bearer is leading a Bloodclaws unit, the bearer can use this enhancement. If it does, improve all their AP by 1.
I don't think this is needed.
Yeah, on 1, a Bloodclaws unit, a big horde of guys that swinging at, AP, are their attacks normally AP 1? Their chain
Scrolling
swords are
down.
normally AP1, so AP2, that's not nothing.
Yeah, AP2 is the sweet spot, but I don't know.
It's kind of limited. And then Helm of the Beast Slayer, for any Adeptus Astartes model, each time an attack made by a character, monster, or vehicle targets the bearer's unit, reduce the AP of the attack by 1. Could be useful. It's not terrible.
Yeah, the first 2 are the ones I would lean to taking. The second 2, probably not.
Yeah. And then your strats, Unbridled Ferocity. In the fight phase, select a Space Wolves unit from your army that has not been selected to fight this phase. Add 1 to their wound rolls. +1 to wound is always good. Like, that's better than +1 strength, so it's very solid.
And you'll probably be hitting this on either your Wulfen or your Bloodclaws.
Yeah.
So I think this is a solid strat still.
Yeah. Shock Cavalry. In your movement phase or your charge phase, select a Thunderwolf Cav from your army that has not yet been selected to move or charge. They can move through non-Titanic models and pieces of terrain that are 4 inches or less than height. They just can't end again in engagement range of anything they didn't charge.
The moving through terrain is a big deal in my mind.
Yes.
And also, I'm starting to think of Thunderwolf Cav as more as objective getters from the far corners or something like that, because they're okay in melee, and shooting, but their movement is off the charts. So
yeah. And they can do this when they advance. So yeah, it's like you can't. It prevents your opponent from being able to screen them out from getting where they need to be. Pinning Fire. In your shooting phase, select an Adeptus Astartes unit that hasn't been selected to shoot yet. After they have shot, select an enemy character, monster, or vehicle hit by 1 or more of their attacks. Until the start of your next shooting phase, they are pinned, which is -2 to move and -2 from charge rolls.
Sure.
Yeah, fine. Especially if you're trying to pin down a character to hunt.
Yes.
Thunderous Pursuit for 1 CP in your opponent's movement phase just after they moved and ended within 9 inches of one of your Adeptus Astartes units. You can then make a normal move of D6 inches. If they were Space Wolves Infantry or Thunderwolf Cav, they can move 6 inches instead, which is mostly going to be Thunderwolf Cav and Wulfen, I imagine, in this list.
Bloodclaws.
Bloodclaws. Okay, yeah. Impetuosity in your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. At 1 Wulfen Infantry or Bloodclaws unit that was the target. If they lost 1 or more models, they get a Blood Surge of D6 inches.
I like.
Yeah. And then Coordinated Strike for a CP at the end of your opponent's fight phase. You select a Space Wolves unit from your army that is wholly within 9 inches of the battlefield edge and not in engagement range. They go back into reserves.
And I am starting to like this style of stratagem a lot because it gives slower units a way to kind of redeploy on the battlefield. So I like it.
Yeah. And like I said, it's funny. The strats here are the most specifically Space Wolf to the point where they're calling out particular unit types like Thunderwolf Cav and Bloodclaws and Wulfen. But it's the detachment that is the most friendly to non-Space Wolf Marine units.
Fair.
If there was a way to give like the more generic characters, and like you're not hurting for a selection of characters because you've like named characters. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 named characters,
and that's even getting rid of 4 other ones.
Right. So you still have 6 named characters. You've got 1, 2, 3 generic characters. I think that's the part that hurts the most is you only have 3 characters that can take any of these upgrades. Granted, you can take like multiple War Guard battle leaders if you want. Most of these you're not going to bother taking an Iron Priest in many of these cases. These are mostly going to go in Wolf Priests and Wolf Guard battle leaders. And they're addressing this because they wouldn't call out the fact that, well, these can go on Space Wolves and these can go on Adeptus Astartes if they didn't know. Like, this is an intentional choice. This is not accidental. But man, it makes those first detachments feel bad.
Yeah.
Especially as we've discussed, a lot of once you get outside the characters and some of the very specific Space Wolf. No, pardon me. There's one extra character, Murderfang.
Sure.
who can't take any of the upgrades anyway.
But I guess if you put him in the heroes all, he could try to get to the opponent's deployment zone. He can't hold the objective for you, though, but...
No. Unless you've got a Wolf Priest nearby, because then he'd be OC3.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, gosh. But then you've got to either have the Wolf Priest leading a unit or on their own to easily get picked off.
Right. But it's like most of the units here, like as we discussed, Blood Claws and Grey Hunters, they're okay, but man, there's better alternatives in the Space Marine book. But this book does not want you to take the non-Space Wolf ones because they don't work right. They don't work properly with your detachment rules. Yeah. Pax Quarry could be really good if it wasn't limited to just Space Wolf units getting the benefit.
I will hope that they come up with a fact to extend the designer's notes to say, yeah, when we say you're a Space Wolf, but yeah, like you said, Rob, the fact that they specifically call out Adeptus Astartes versus Space Wolf on a lot of those, that definitely was a design choice. So I guess that's how it'll get worded unless they make a ruling or a fact, because it just says, we assume they're from your Space Wolf chapter, but that doesn't say they are. And headache.
And I think what frustrates me is like, okay, Blood Angels, like I would always like my detachment choice is the Liberator Assault group when I place them. Otherwise, the Angelic Inheritors Grotmus detachment is also a really good one because it leans into Blood Angels characters. But I look at Space Wolves, I'm like, yeah, these detachments are like, I mean, well, there's wolves, they should be fluffy, but I mean, they're like, they fit thematically with what Space Wolves do. And from a narrative standpoint, I don't dislike them, but I look at these detachments and I'm like, I could just play Gladius detachment and have all my stuff work no matter what I take.
Right.
Or I could take, like if I want to play Thunderwolf Cav, I could just play Stormlance Task Force.
Right, which is, I think, what they take now.
Yeah. It's like, I don't think there's much of a reason not to.
I'll say, like, for when I'm playing Dark Angels, because I'll play them again this weekend against some friends, and I'm going to be running Ironstorm as my detachment, because, one, I'm taking a couple of vehicles, but two, getting those little rerolls is a big help. So I view more of the Dark Angels supplement detachments as fluffy, of like, if I want to take a Ravenwing, if I want to take Deathwing, then I'll go into those. But if I'm just doing something generic, I'm leaning into the Space Marines Codex. And I think from going through here, because I didn't realize the keyword issue until you brought it up, and that makes me lean towards, if I were to run Space Wolves, if I was doing fluffy, I'd probably do the Wulfen one, the Beast Slayer. But past that, I would probably lean towards, like you said, playing it in one of the Space Marine Codex detachments.
Mm-hmm. And also, like, I'm looking at the other Codex supplements for Space Marines, and it's like, okay, so we mentioned like Arjak Rockfist and Logan Grimnar can only join the Wolfguard Terminator squads. And I'm looking at Belial. And it's like, well, he can attach to any of the Terminator squads. Deathwing Knights, Deathwing Terminator Squad, Terminator Assault Squad, regular Terminator Squad. There's no reason apart from, well, we only want you using him with the new Terminator kit, that those characters shouldn't be able to join any of the Terminator squads. And there's no reason why you should have to gut your existing Terminator collection to run Space Wolf Terminators.
The only thing I can think of is they wanted to show that the Space Wolves are kind of divergent from everything else, and that's why they can only really interact with themselves. Mm-hmm. But if that's the case, why don't we just give us our own codex and not be a supplement? I keep on saying that over and over again.
No, and in this case, like Blood Angels and Dark Angels, we looked at it and it's like, yeah, they work nicely with the other pieces that are already there. They bring enough of their own stuff in, but it still plays nicely with the other rules. There's at least one detachment in each of those books where it leans in nicely to having just a mixed force that uses existing Marine stuff. And they are more codex compliant than Space Wolves, for sure. But yeah, if Space Wolves, I totally agree with you. If Space Wolves are so different, why are they so weird? Like, why not just give them their own full book? Or, again, the easy fix, the fix they should have done when they fixed the Bloodless Angels issue, is just say, hey, if you take one of these detachments, all your units gain the Space Wolves, like any units that do not have a chapter gain the Space Wolves faction keyword.
Any Adeptus Astartes units.
Well, yeah. Any Adeptus Astartes units that do not have a chapter.
Otherwise, you could have a Free Blade Knight come in and, hi, I'm now a Space Wolf.
You know what? At this point, I'm fine with it. But no, it's like you should be like any Adeptus Astartes unit gains the Space Wolf keyword, and that would fix these attachments. It would fix so many other interactions. It would still have you weirdly limited on a few characters. And again, I feel like the Wolfguard Terminators should just have a rule that says, hey, if anybody can join a Terminator squad, they can join this squad. That would fix that problem, because that's how all the other factions have their stuff worded.
Because I want Arjak Rockface leading a squad of Thunderhammer Storm Shield Terminators. That's what I want.
Yeah.
I can't.
Nope. And there's, other than, like you said, well, these guys are made different, so no. It's like, that's a bad choice. It's a bad design choice. It does not lend itself well to good army building with the tools, with all the tools you have. It's like it intentionally cutting you off from tools, especially for Space Wolves players who already have this stuff.
I mean, you said already have the stuff. This is why I compared, when I first read through this, to the Emperor's Children, Rob, because I had my plan. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing this for Emperor's Children. And I really, there was so much stuff you couldn't take. And this is the same feel. And like Emperor's Children, to really play it, you have to focus on what's in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really disheartened me at the beginning of like, I'm losing so much. So much stuff rolled back into Space Marine. And then I got over it because I'm like, well, I can still merge the two. But then, as you said, with these, I can only merge the two if I'm playing really a Space Marines detachment. So
yeah,
I'm still... Yeah. I don't think this is the best book for Space Wolves.
No, I don't think. I think there's some things they do very well, and there's some things they made some very bad choices on. And this is this is going to screw people up. This is really going to screw people up, because I just have a feeling newer players are going to miss that bit about like, hey, it's only this, like for the Saga of the Hunter, because it's that first detachment. That's usually the one that people think of as, oh, this is the faction detachment. So like, this is the generalist one. And they're going to miss that, oh, it's only your Space Wolves units. Like now somebody who buys the launch box that has like the Blood Claws and the Grey Hunters and the Wolfguard battle leader in it, like that's what they're going to start with. But then they're going to bring in like, well, I'm going to bring in a Brutalis Dread because it looks really cool, and it's, it's the Assault Dread. Oh yeah, that one doesn't get the benefit of the rule.
What if we have it counts as Murderfang?
Then yes, that would work. But yeah, this book boggles me. There's so many, there's just enough weird decisions. Yeah, I'm not happy with it. And we talked last episode. You weren't here for the last episode, but I'm not sure how Thousand Sons are going to take things, because their army rule got shifted around and and noticeably nerfed in a few ways. It's still mostly, it does a lot of the same things but differently. But it's a downgrade, but there's a couple of perks to it. But at least it fully functions, and I don't know how Space Wolves are going to feel about this one, though. Right.
No, I'll agree with all that, because our army rules really oath a moment. Mm-hmm. But that's Space Marines army rule, and the detachment is just, oh yeah, your OC0 guys who weren't OC0 before, now they can have their OC back if they're by a character. I mean, at least we got oath a moment.
Yeah.
But I'll say, jumping back to the Thousand Sons, I did talk to our local player who's interested in them. And he seemed interested in like the psychic table being kind of roll dice back for it. He was sad about the whole sorcerer points because he was trying to come up with lists to maximize sorcerer points or cabal points, I guess they were. But he seemed like, yeah, rolling dice random, that's a good change, sure. So he seemed open on it.
Mm-hmm. But if you are used to playing the Thousand Suns as they were, the effects are more powerful in the in the index version than they are in the codex. But
I'm still used to putting my terminators in drop pods for the Space Wolves because we don't like teleports.
Right.
When is that coming back?
It's not. And obviously this book also did, I guess because it would be a more generic one, but we don't know what the new drop pod rules are going to be either, which I don't even think we've talked about that on the show. The fact that they're really releasing a new drop pod where the doors are always open.
Yep.
It's the thing that's happening.
Yeah. That's a thing. We don't know what it does yet, and how they finally have addressed the debate of where the doors count as. But
and the fact that the doors look like on rocks or something to keep them in place.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I don't even know if they fold up, and then if so,
no, they don't. They don't.
And then how do you transport it?
You don't. It's like Fulgrim from Horus Heresy. You build it. You bring the kit to the venue. You assemble it there, and then you leave it.
See, I just remember when we first got into this. Back in my day, we used Dr. Pepper cans for drop pots.
We said in the cold open that we're turning into a bunch of grumpy old men. And this is the grumpiest old man codex we've had.
Which is oddly appropriate, by the way.
It is. I mean, it's a bunch of old guys with beards being angry about things. So, yeah.
Oh, where are my clouds to yell at?
Yeah. And on that note, I think we'll wrap up our review. But yeah, that's Space Wolves. So our next episode is Midwest Conquest, which when this episode drops, we'll be busy playing in. So in a week or two, you'll get to hear our coverage of Midwest Conquest. But
you'll be busy playing in it.
I'll be busy playing. You two will be busy running. But I'll be busy
let
playing
Kevin run. I'm going to like
running.
chill. Oh.
But until then, from all of us here at Preferred Enemies, I'm your host, Rob. Kevin.
Dennis.
Good night, good gaming, and yeah, grumpy old men with beards waving axes at things. That's this army.